how the Incredibles solved the super suit problem. Where is my super suit? Shout out to my boy Samuel Jackson, and let's get into the video. Yes, sir.
In my first video, I told you the cape was one rational piece of superhero clothing that earned its place. I want to apologize. Not to you, to a fictional costume designer with the black bob and an accent no continent will fully claim, who has been right about this for 22 years and solved all of its problems just like they did with super speed. Except one. So let's go over them. To understand why she was right about most of them, we have to start at the scene everybody already knows. Bob is sitting in her living room asking her to redesign his suit. He has just made the mistake of suggesting he wants something classic, something like Dynaguy.
Oh, he had a great look. Oh, the cape and the boots.
And Edna throws a wadded ball of paper at his head and snaps. No capes! That's the meme that has had its own internet life for 20 years and that every superhero fan can quote on demand from a Pixar movie they probably haven't rewatched in a decade. It's funny. What almost nobody talks about is what happens for the next 45 seconds. Edna keeps going. She names Thunderhead first. He was tall, had storm powers, was a nice man, and good with kids. His cape snagged on a missile fin on November 15th of 1958. Then she named Stratigale, whose cape caught in a jet turbine on April 23rd of the previous year.
That death is crazy. That death is way worse than a rocket. I ain't gonna lie.
Then she fires 3 more off in rapid succession. Metaman killed in an express elevator. Dynaguy snapped on a takeoff, which is the hero Bob was just nostalgically recommending, by the way. Splashdown sucked into a vortex. 5 named supers, all wearing capes, all dead mid-action. The dates are in Edna's head like she has been waiting 20 years for someone to ask. But that scene is also telling us who Edna Mode actually is. Edna has personally cataloged every death in the genre, and she uses those deaths as research material every time a new super needs a new suit. She is doing what no other designer in the history of superhero costumes has ever bothered to do at that point in time, treating costume design like an engineering discipline. Every failure produces a lesson, and the lesson goes into the next design. The next design is measurably better than the one before it because the failure that would have killed someone in the previous suit got engineered out before the next one ever left the workshop.
See, that's smart right there. She's able to adapt to, like, I understand. I ain't gonna say they're like that test subject, the first 5 people they mentioned, but like, I feel like she learned from she learned from people's mistakes. And she adapt, make it better. And so there's no cape. So if there's no cape, there's no dragging to the suits. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Rest of the industry and the 70 years of comic book history has never once worked this way, as far as I'm aware. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I mean, Tony Stark iterates on his own suit. Sure, he builds the Mark II better than the Mark I, but Tony is iterating on fucking Tony. This is Edna. And Edna is iterating across the entire population of supers. She is learning from Stratigale's turbine death and Dynaguy's takeoff snag and applying it to Bob's next suit. She has been doing this her entire career, alone.
Now, why should it go?
The industry kept rebuilding the same broken silhouettes from scratch because the look was iconic. Every new Edna design should be the best superhero costume that has ever existed. The reason is that she is the only person treating every previous costume as evidence. Still, there is one fatal flaw. For that, I will plant this picture in your head and explain later. And every pawn in that house, there is one fatal flaw. For that, I will plant this picture in your head and explain later. And every pawn in that house is wearing the result. But how did she engineer each one for a different
She's a gal.
That's where the real genius is. Dash is a kid who runs at supersonic speed. In any other superhero franchise, this is the moment the designer hands him a red onesie and walks away. The Flash spent decades running at the speed of sound in a literal piece of spandex, and the comics eventually retconned
double technology at me. Hit the Flash. He's the GOAT. So he be doing his thing for real. Stop playing. Like, I understand. Yeah, it don't make sense, bro, right? It's the Flash, right? He's close with Burnout when he runs, bro, but it's for the plot.
Material into the costume to explain why it wasn't on fire. That part was retconned in, right? I know some people agreed and some didn't in my last video. For years, he was just a man technically combusting at all times and nobody asked questions. Edna asked questions before the first sketch.
As she
Her
should.
exact line about Dash's suit is that she designed it to withstand enormous friction without heating up or wearing out.
Your boy's suit are designed to withstand enormous friction without heating up or wearing out. A useful feature.
Edna probably read the comics as it is the answer to a 60-year-old engineering question that DC had to invent a fictional substance to hand wave around. Edna just solves it. Heat resistance is built in. Wear resistance is built in. The suit can run at the speed Dash actually runs without falling apart. But
what if he gets older?
Yeah, all right. She still kind of gave him a red onesie. Maybe she's not that good after all.
Well, the whole Flaming Gun one red onesie, all right? So there's Dash, there's Jack, there's the mom, the sister. You know, everybody get the one red Z, all right?
Oh, where is she? Well, then she gets to Violet. Violet's power is invisibility. The famous and obvious problem with invisibility in superhero design is that you can hide your body, but the suit doesn't go with you. Most invisibility characters either pretend the issue isn't there or wear something nobody talks about. Spider-Man has a version of the same problem from the opposite direction. His power is in his hands. His designer covered the hands with gloves. We talked about this last video. The gloves protect the identity, and they also cover the part of him that does the work. Edna does not do that to Violet. Her exact line is that Violet's suit was tricky.
But I finally created a sturdy material that will disappear completely as she does.
The material has been engineered to match the power.
First, hold on. I know she has the power to do that, but what material did she exactly use? I understand she's a genius, right? But like, talk me through it. What did she use to make the glow go invisible? You know?
Helen. Elastigirl's
Ah.
suit. Edna's words.
Your sword
My
will
fault.
stretch as far as you can without injuring yourself, and still retain its shape. But
That leaves
you're
clothes.
indestructible. It breathes like Egyptian cotton.
Every piece of that sentence is doing something. Stretch, shape, durability, breathability, all solved in one design
How's it
brief.
hurt?
Because Helen has to wear this thing for hours in combat, and a fabric that doesn't breathe is going to be its own problem. Enemies will smell her from a mile away. I mean, if I smelled that piece of work from a mile away, I would ultimately have to violate my restraining order.
Sir.
Bob is one lucky man. Speaking of Bob, Bob's suit is the simplest of the
You're not
five
lying,
and
though.
also the most overlooked. It is bullet and fireproof, I think. It does not have a cape because the case file in Edna's head said nope. That is the entire spec, and it is more rigorous than what most live-action Batman suits come with 20 years later. And then there's Jack.
Let
Jack
go.
has no known powers when Edna designs his suit, so Edna designs for the variable. Her speech is another sublime piece of dialogue about superhero suit engineering, but I probably can't play the whole thing without being kept hostage by copyright, so I will just explain it in my best Edna mode accent. I cut it a little roomy for the free movement. The fabric is comfortable for sensitive skin, and it can also withstand a temperature of over 1,000 degrees.
Damn.
Completely bulletproof and machine washable, darling. That's a new feature. Oh, and if it wasn't clear already, the Parr family isn't like a one-off. Frozone has a suit too, if you can find it.
Is my super suit.
Sorry, I love using that clip. Frozone has
That's the
different
clip.
powers, way different than the Parr family. So his suit has a different design and a different power, but the same engineering ethic underneath. The Vision handles the glare off the ice. It's probably insulated as well, so that the whole costume is built around a power that would make any normal fabric brittle
Cooler.
inside 10 seconds. The first film does not say who designed it, but I think the second one confirmed it was Edna. Maybe it was the first, I don't remember. Anywho, that is the methodology in full, and
I don't know if they confirmed it, but
it is also where the one thing she didn't solve becomes visible. Look
What?
at any Parr family member during a fight scene. The mask is just around the eyes. You know, full-on Green Arrow style. The whole bottom half of the head is open for anything that comes at it. In any reasonable threat model, that is a design failure. I will die on this hill. Heroes get hit in the face. The Parrs walk into threats with the most vital part of the human body uncovered. This is the one thing Edna probably chose not to engineer her way out of. She could have solved it. The same fabric that
She
protects
feel like
Jack
it.
Jack from 1,000 degrees, and bullets could trivially be wrapped around a chin. She chose not to. It would kind of look like a latex BDSM mask, which,
Yeah.
as it turns out, would be a perfect fit for a superhero. If you don't know what I mean, you should watch my Secret Identity video. I promise it'll be interesting.
is that
Back to
furry?
the problems with full face masks, though.
alright.
The face is the emotional instrument of every superhero scene. You need to see Bob's jaw set when he makes a hard call. You need to see Violet's fear when she walks into something she has not done before. A full helmet kills the read. Edna picked the trade in front of the audience because she apparently knows she's in a movie, full-on Truman Show style. The heroes in
I don't
our
think so.
arsenal walk in the bullets with their faces open because the film needs those faces to do their job. Probably. Hypershock did have a
Yeah.
helmet, so did Gazer Beam, just not a full face one. Which is where we
But
have
you
to
still
head
see him
back to what I
smile.
previously talked about. Survivorship bias. She only learns from failures she knows happened. Stratigale's turbine got reported back to her. So did Thunderhead's missile fin. Those went into the case file and got engineered out of the next suit. But what about the supers who died from face shots? There was no Stratigale equivalent or
someone get
exposed
shot?
jaw on a record. If those deaths happen, and statistically they have to have happened, maybe they never made it back to her workshop. Which means the face stays open in every suit she designs, partly because she decided the emotional read was worth the trade. If she even did that, and partly because she has no case file telling her to fix it. That is the only part
that's
of
on her,
her
bro.
work that isn't
That's on her.
solved. Everything else is. And the reason everything else is solved is because Edna designs in the opposite direction from the rest of the industry. Wonder Woman's bracelets are modeled from the jewelry of the designer's partner. He thought they looked good. Superman's cape was a piece of red fabric because it looked good in the air. Edna goes the other way every single time. She starts with the power. She asks what the power needs.
'Cause she's
She builds
smarter.
the suit to do the thing. The fact that the finished suit looks iconic is a side
yeah.
effect.
But hold on though. I like that Edna, right? She builds a suit to prevent things that from happening again. And people, I'm not saying the modern DC. I guess the way the man is glazing the hell out of Superman, right? The cape is just there for design. He don't really need the cape, right? Superman don't really need a cape, but Superman without the cape is like, I guess. I mean, it's still Superman at the end of the day, bro. But cape would look cooler. I'm just saying, cape would look cooler.
The design being correct.
I'm just saying.
But this logic is also flawed, which Logic Logan has to admit. The
What?
Incredibles is animated, which means Edna gets to declare materials into existence with whatever properties the script demands.
2/4, bro. That's
no
literally
real-world
2/4.
physics for a fabric that exists because the animators drew it, right? Iron Man has to build Mark 1 and watch it fail before he gets Mark 2. Vibranium has decades of canon limiting what it can actually do. Batman has the Nomex suit, which probably has some explanation. Arguably,
Yeah.
Batman Begins also crafts the suit the right way, naming the material and its properties. Real franchises pay for their material science with screen time and on-screen failure. Edna pays for hers with a line of dialogue. She just says it has
did
these
better.
properties, and now it has these properties.
better.
Nothing backing it up. The methodology underneath it is still copyable? How do you say it? The live-action studios could be designing forward without inventing a new substance. Here, no capes, again with the methodology in mind. The rule is about decoration. Anything on a suit that exists for the look and not for the work. So, would Edna get pissed at Batman who has a
Yes.
cape? No. Batman's cape glides, blocks bullets, and hides his silhouette. So, the cape, the look, and not for the work. So, would Edna get pissed at Batman who has a cape?
Yes.
No. Batman's
Why?
cape glides, blocks bullets, and hides his silhouette so he reads as a different shape. Edna would have looked at that and signed off. Strategale's cape did none of those things. It was
All
a
right.
piece of cloth attached to a person because superhero costumes used to come with capes. So she died. The rule was never about capes specifically. It was about everything that came after
Okay,
them. Once
that
you
makes
understand
sense.
the rule that way, the most counterintuitive thing about Edna's whole philosophy starts to make sense. Why she kept the colors.
There's
In
no
the
value
previous
to it.
video, we said tactical was the answer. Make Superman wear black. Make Batman ditch the chest symbol. Solve the visibility problem by making the heroes harder to see. Edna would push back on every word of that. Before Bob even mentions Dynaguy or the cape, Edna's already pushing for what the new design should be.
As she should, bro. She's the designer.
She is excited about it. The bold colors are things she pushes for. The reason she pushes for them is the same
Why?
reason the engineering works
Bob
in the rest
the
of her design.
Builder.
Function first. A superhero costume's
My
primary
goat?
function is to not hide its wearer. It is to make the wearer legible from 100 meters away in the middle of a city so the civilians know who is coming to help them and which one of the four bodies moving at his speed is the one not
They're
trying
all
to kill
red.
them. The colors of the signal. Same signal we talked about with Iron Man and Superman in our last video. Edna's whole catalog is dressed accordingly. Bright red on the pars, blue and white on Frozone, with yellow accents that read from a distance. To make sure the audience can't miss the argument, the film puts the opposite philosophy on the screen too. On Syndrome. He wears a high-collared dark suit with a big letter S on
mean,
it
he's
with
an
elbow
evil.
gloves, and looks kind of stupid, but he also has a cape. Aha! A silhouette that reads as a tactical ginger that used way too much hair gel. He is wearing the design fans have been asking for since the 80s, a grounded, thick-shaped superhero costume. And he
But it looked goofy a little bit. I mean, yeah, he was a good villain, but like, he still looked goofy.
is the villain. Syndrome has no powers. His entire identity is built on technology and the resentment of people who do have powers. So his suit is built like the suit of a man who has
I didn't
nothing
get the
else
powers.
underneath the fabric. Heavy on the gear and cold on the palate. Engineered for credibility instead of visibility. The film that puts that costume on the character whose whole arc is about overcompensating for the absence of real gift. You are watching a story where the hero family wears bright colors and the man trying to kill them wears tack black, which is an argument. And once you see the argument that way, you will also see why nothing in live action has copied any of it. So why don't they? Oh, well, that's so nice you asked, dear
Because
viewer.
the
Well, in
cartoon? I don't know.
2004, two answers to the same broken question arrived at the same time.
the question
Ryan
is?
Hitch had been redrawing the Avengers for Marvel since 2002 in a series called The Ultimates. His pitch was militarized realism, bulky armor, leather panels, soldiers, and tactical gear instead of brightly colored icons. Hitch's redesign set the comic world on fire. They became almost directly the visual blueprint for the Marvel Cinematic Universe when it
So y'all said, let's go away from the colorful comic book and let's go more bland and basic. Is that what I'm hearing?
launched a couple years later. In November of the same year, the year that Hitch's Ultimates 2 wasn't released yet, Pixar put The Incredibles in cinemas. Both films were trying to fix the same problem. Both were saying that superhero costumes, as the comics had drawn them, did not survive contact with reality. They came to opposite conclusions about how to fix it. Hitch's answer was to remove everything that looked like a comic book. Edna's answer was to
fuck?
keep what looked like a comic book and engineer the failures out from underneath the silhouette. The industry picked Hitch, or
What? Take all the stuff from a comic book and take it out the comic book, and y'all agree with that? Am I bugging? I think I'm bugging.
If you're really interested in that part, we walked through what that looked like last video. Every
I didn't
MCU
hear that.
suit reading
I didn't hear
like
that.
it was made by the same defense contractor. Spider-Man's bedroom sewn costume sharing structural panels with Captain America's government
Oh my
uniform.
God,
Scarlet
that's
Witch
so bad.
dressed like an assassin. Shang-Chi in armor. That contradicts the philosophy of his fighting style. The Incredibles never got copied. Not once in 20 years of live-action superhero films across 2 studios
Thank
and a
God.
dozen reboots. You can't
Thank
blame
God.
Marvel and DC entirely for that. The Incredibles got to do what it did because of Pixar. It was an original property. Nobody at the studio had to protect the way the existing suits look
Thank
because
God.
the existing
Thank
suit
God.
did not exist yet. Edna could throw out the cape because there was no toy line built on the cape. Brad Bird could insist on bold colors because there was no 80-year-old reader base ready to revolt if the silhouette changed.
Yeah.
Marvel and DC do not have that freedom. Every suit on screen has to remain recognizable enough that the action figure on the shelf is still sellable. Every redesign
yeah.
has to pass a
That makes
focus
sense.
group of people who grew up on the version that doesn't work. The studios are protecting the original idea and IP. They can't just change that without massive backlash from fans. Neither can they just invent the new material without
They
lore
some weird
explanations,
fans.
without Logic Logan giving an illogical take on them. So you end up with the worst version of both philosophies. The colors have been muted to look more tactical, and the silhouettes can't actually change.
Yo, why can't they just go stick with the comic books, right? Like, I understand he wanted to go from comic book, but like, just keep the comic book colors, right? You know, and make the comic book like if you're gonna adapt a comic book, stick to the material at least, right? Like, if I'm playing a game, right, and they make a live action of the game, I expect them to at least stay on par of the game, not go off on some other venture and talk some bull in my face. Give me the source material. Like, what? Don't go off the rail.
Change for the fear of backlash. At least that's what I think. The result is 20 years of suits that are darker than the comics and dumber than the Incredibles, all structurally identical to one another. Pixar got to ask the question. Everyone else has been answering a different one. But there is still one question left
What?
unanswered. For that, you have to go back to the original argument this video is responding to. Click here to watch it.
All right. As you
And
said,
answering a different one.
how did Incredibles solve the suit problem, bro? They went their own route, bro. They ain't follow the Spider-Man, the Marvel DC comic book. They did their own route and their own, storyline. And that's why I forward the Incredible. But if y'all like the video and y'all want to see more content, don't forget to like, comment, share, and we'll see you in the video. Peace.